Mornings, when Susan Straight looks out her kitchen window, she is reminded of where her life started. She was born in Riverside at the very hospital anchored in the landscape on the other side of the glass. And Riverside holds both her past and her future.
I think some of us are born to love this particular landscape that we were born in, almost genetically. For me, Riverside has always been this absolutely unique mixture of people. I think it's partly the comfort of you can have all these different races, all these different people. My mom's from Switzerland, and everyone's very comfortable here. It might be the weather, but I think it's also just the geography of the way people have always lived in neighborhoods where they stayed close to their families.
In Riverside, Straight also found her literary muse. As a young girl, she was encouraged by her Swiss mother to read at an early age. Her kindergarten teacher recognized that the best way to support the young student was to, in Straight's words, put her in a quiet spot and let her read. But it was at North High School that the reader emerged as a writer, first using poetry to explore the world. Then, in what's referred to as a turning point by writers, landing at Riverside Community College and discovering her unique voice in short fiction. She attributes that discovery to her first class with Professor Bill Bowers.
Between my junior and senior years at North High, my mom decided a lot of my friends were getting in trouble, and she wanted me to keep busy that summer. So she made me sign up for summer school here at RCC. And my mother was a student here. Actually, she played on the tennis team for Fran Bushman, and she wanted me to be around the campus. So I took a creative writing class with Bill Bowers, and that was an amazing class. And I wrote my very first short story. Before then, I'd written pretty bad adolescent poetry that I never showed to anyone. But in Bill Bowers' class, we had to write an entire short story. And I wrote a short story about an old woman riding on the bus, because I used to ride the bus. And I didn't want it to be autobiographical, so I made her 80 years old. And Bill Bowers was so encouraging, and he said it was a great story and had me read it out loud. No, he asked me to read it out loud. And I said no, I was afraid, because everyone else in the class was an adult. And so he read it out loud and said it was anonymous. And that was quite a thrill. And he gave me extra things to read, extra short stories, and really started me off on my writing career. The other funny thing about Bill Bowers was, in the beginning of the class, and it was a long class, it was summer school, and it was intense, I wrote 3 short fiction pieces, and they all ended with dead bodies. And I wrote these lovely lyrical descriptions of being in Idlewild and hiking up a creek, which was Herky Creek, where my family used to camp, and the moss-covered boulders and the mica-studded granite, and then when the person gets to the top of the waterfall, of course, there's a dead body floating there. So after the 3rd such story, Bill Bowers took me aside and said, "Why do people always have to die?" And he said, "You know, people don't always have to die. A story can end in another way." So that was a big revelation.
Straight continued to study at RCC while completing high school. She remembers the time clearly, calling up images not only of Bowers, but of other beloved RCC professors, like Sam Huang and Stan Arterberry, teachers who made learning challenging and fulfilling. After high school, Straight headed for USC. Thanks to her time at RCC, she was able to complete her university degree in 3 years. The young writer next headed to the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, to pursue a master's degree in creative writing. It was at Amherst that Straight would pen Aqua Boogie, a collection of short stories that brought her national attention and signaled her return to Riverside, emotionally through the collection's stories and physically when the airplane carried her home.
I wrote Aqua Boogie when I was I started it when I was a graduate student in Massachusetts because I was so lonely for Riverside and for that particular landscape.
Straight's return to Riverside also marked a return to RCC. She taught writing at the Riverside campus for a year before moving across town to UC Riverside, and she continued to write stories. "I Been in Sorrow's Kitchen and Licked Out All the Pots," and The Gettin' Place quickly followed Aqua Boogie, establishing Straight as an award-winning writer who, through her stories set in Rio Seco, a fictionalized parallel to Riverside, and her personal experiences growing up in a vibrant, multicultural community, spoke to the American experience from a stark and evocative street-level perspective.
I think writing about a particular black experience for me has been the way people of all races come to a place like California and what they do. My mom came here from another country. My stepdad came here from Canada and ended up building the apartments that are right behind campus on 15th and Main. My dad bought that land and built apartment buildings where a lot of students have always been housed. And then, as I said, my mother and father-in-law immigrated from Oklahoma and from Mississippi. So when you think about Riverside as a place where in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, all these different cultures came, there is an American experience about that. Much of my work has been centered around a neighborhood like the East Side in Riverside, telling, I think, the story of how people got to California, whether they're from Mexico, from Oklahoma, or from Switzerland, is what has always interested me.
As a single mother of 3 daughters, Strait wrote steadily, adding blacker than 1,000 midnights, short stories, and essays to her body of work. She even found time to pen 2 children's books, Bear E. Bear and The Hallway Light at Night. Meanwhile, at UC Riverside, she was instrumental in developing a successful MFA program in creative writing and expanding the impact of UCR's annual Writers' Week. Yet, through the long days and nights as a mother, teacher, and writer, Strait held on to 2 things that had always made her whole: her deep commitment to family, both hers and her former husband Dwayne's, and her connection to Riverside.
I probably have 400 family members in the Southern California area, and most of them are in Riverside. So that kind of safety net and that kind of, family obligation, I see everyone in my family almost every day. So coming back to Riverside for me was about family.
We are pleased that this internationally known author also has remained tied to RCC, as an alumna, as an author who was selected as the first Voices from the Americas lecturer, and even as a tennis player.
When I was a student here, my mother was playing on the tennis team for Fran Bushman, and my mother graduated from RCC when I was in high school. So playing for Fran Bushman was fun. I used to play tennis too, and I was on North's tennis team, so I played a lot of tennis here. My youngest daughter plays tennis now, and we walk to the old courts, which are down in the lower part. Both my brothers-in-law work here. They're both custodians here, so we come to campus and see them now and then. And we come to Poly football games here, and this season and last season we came to a lot of the RCC men's and women's basketball games too. So I think we've been coming to RCC basketball games probably for 25 years. So my kids laugh, but we walk over here since we all live in the neighborhood, and we see everybody in the neighborhood walking over, and Poly has its graduations here. So we're on campus at least once or twice a week.
Tonight, we are proud to recognize Susan Strait as Riverside Community College's 2008 and 50th Alumnus of the Year, for her love of the community, for her literary voice that raises up those it touches, and for her stories which tell the truths we all need to hear.